Are you seeing the templates, finding the templates, observing the templates, looking for the interpretation with me? There was a comment made to me by someone recently that inspired me to make this video. And I understand I'm being very prolific right now. It's like daily videos almost. All I can tell you is that I'm just getting this outpouring of understanding right now, and I need a place to put it. So I'm just going to keep making videos. All right, that having been said, my name is Dan Paulson. Let's go ahead and get into this. What I'm going to do is take from 4 different teachings, pull one verse from each one of them. I'm going to pull one from China, one from Buddha, one from Moses' work in Genesis, and one from Jesus. Right there, those 4. One verse out of each one, and show how they interpret in the same way, become the same thing, and where they reside on the template. The thing is you have to see, in order to see the template, you have to first interpret the verse and what it means. So that's what I'm going to do here, pick 4 different sources and show how they interpret the same way. First, the comment came from Van Brewer 5932, and it was just observing and watching, and somebody who said, yeah, I've been searching for the templates themselves, and indicated that I can now see the patterns are also found within the micro as well as the macro narratives. Yeah, the templates are in both very short works and in very big works. And that's what we're going to talk about here, is how to begin seeing that. I think all of us are aware of enough component parts. We see similarities. How people came about. This God sounds like that God over there. They were both born from half God and half mortal. They're both half. Yeah, there's a lot of things that you start looking at, flood stories, things like that. And the more things you look at, the more you begin seeing those sort of comparative similarities. You have to read a lot of stuff, and you begin to see more and more of it. But what you're seeing there are alignments of the template. And the verbiage is very close between teachings, so you can see the alignment. But they can obscure the verbiage so much in the template parts that they no longer sound the same. However, they still are. We have to interpret all of them the same way. In some cases, there is storytelling culture. They don't have all 20 of these sitting in front of them at one time to make comparisons. They're hearing them verbally. They don't read or write. They're processing it in their minds. We have to do that, but we also get to put them side by side. That's the only way I can get into it. I have to look at all of them to see what they're doing. As we approach the material too, make sure that you're observing a mindset. If we read something like the Tao Te Ching or the Dhammapada and we're trying to analyze it, we can look at that very objectively, detached from it. We don't have some sort of a reverence to it, but we're not, we're very much like science looking at it, very open to what it is. Let's figure this out. That when we get to the Bible, you have to do the same thing. You have to treat it that way. You can't give it some kind of a reverence that makes you not be able to access it. This might say something like, an anchored ship will not sail. They'll change the genre and say something like, an anchored ship will not sail, saith the Lord. That's it. We need to get past that as we go through and interpret. Okay. For this video, I'll be using the Stephen Mitchell version translation of the Tao Te Ching, the Frederick Max Mueller translation of the Dhammapada, and the NRSV Bible for both Moses and Jesus' work. Alrighty. For this video, class, what I'm going to do first is read the verse that I'm going to make comparisons with. I'll start with Lao Tzu, then go to the Buddha, and then go to Moses, and then go to Jesus. I'm not going to introduce between them. I'm just going to go in between each one of them and read them to start with without talking about them. We're going to listen to them to begin with, and then go in and begin the analysis. Naming is the origin of all particular things. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. Blessed are you who are poor. They should have a little bit of a familiar sound between them already to begin with. Some closer than others. Maybe the Jesus one in the end, the poor one. What? That one sounds out there. The other ones, between Lao Tzu and Moses, Hey, there's naming in there. Naming is the origin of all things. Whatever the man named it, that's what he called them. Hey, that's pretty close right there, isn't it? What's going on? And then Buddha in the middle of that. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. Jesus actually has a 2-word parallel that I didn't choose here. All the material repeats continuously. Jesus' material does too. I chose this one because it's right at the beginning of the Sermon on the Plain. It's the very first verse, and I wanted it to be there. But judge not. Same thing. Judge not. We can begin hooking into what's going on, and it's a mental process. And ultimately what they're getting to, the idea is when you transition it into the psyche, it is about the human condition, our beginnings in life. That at first in life, we are empty shells. We can become anything. What environment do you live in? What do you become as a result of that? We become products of our life experiences, period. You want to interact with yourself later, you have to know that. You have to know that you are a mental product of your life experiences in order to interact with that. So let's go back and talk about them individually then and just take a quick look. Naming is the origin of all particular things. That just sounds crazy if you're looking at it and not interpreting it. If you think it's about the world, the physical, outward looking, you look at that and say, the world was here long before I ever showed up. How can that even make any sense? Turn it inward. When I show up, what I begin to name is the origin of all particular things. Particular things. My life becomes a product of my experiences in the way that I mentally hold them. That continues. Buddha, very first verse, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. Does that make sense? We are mental products of our thinking experiences. If something bad happened to you as a kid, and you are ashamed and hurt by it, it's going to continue to act out. If something bad happened to you and you don't feel shame from it, it's not going to act out that way. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. Naming is the origin of all particular things. We move on to the Bible. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. We're getting into a different style. It's a story culture now. They're bringing in other elements. They're bringing in more analogs. Living creatures are not about the real world. Again, it has to play out in the psyche. The living creatures represents the things that emerge from me, from my world. Whatever I call the living creature, that was its name. Whatever my experience is, whatever my physical experience is, I call it. I decide what it is. Jesus, this is where it gets weird. Blessed are you who are poor. You have to know that it still plays out internally. You have a psyche, you have a soul, you have a mental state, you have a mental condition. When you don't have anything in there, when you haven't named anything, you are poor. This goes on to add something different. Blessed are you. So that's a good thing. What would the Jesus one say? Judge not. Does that make sense? Whatever something happens, you don't classify it. You don't give it a value. I hate. I'm ashamed. That sucks. You people this, because that becomes your life. That's it. All of them start off that way. And where are they located? All right, and I'll show for familiarity here that the works from Lao Tzu, you can see there, this is page 1 right at the beginning of the Tao Te Ching. We have the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. That is a verse. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. That is a verse. The unnameable is the eternally real. That is a verse. Naming is the origin of all particular things. That is a verse. You see how it's not all numbered out, though. So it's right up front. That's the third verse right in the beginning. We have a little short creation happening there, and then this telling us as we're coming about that we become products of what we are going to experience. It'll go on and teach other things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. That means let go of things. Life is wonderful. Caught in desire, caught in those things you're hanging on to, you see only the manifestations, the circling stars. But naming is the origin of those. If we go to Buddha's, right, which one is it? It's the very first verse in the teaching. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts, and it's made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. So you can see that it goes on from the first verse, we're mental, and whatever, if something happens bad, then it continues to cycle around us. You see that is happening. But you also see that they are happening in the beginning. We go to, I'm not going to pull them up and make examples. We already recognize the biblical verse, the The man naming things, that is in the second creation story. That would have been in Genesis before the first creation story was added. So it's right up front, verse 5 or 6 or something like that. The Jesus verse, poor in spirit, the very first one, that's a template. They're right up front. You see that? Then it's going to sequence. This is the human life. We become products of what we have named. Better off to be empty of it all. So you have to interpret the verse, and they go all over the place with, you're like, well, once you see what they're doing, though, it's always the same template, and they're shifting the verbiage to carry it is all. You get to the core, you can see what they're doing. But you have to know how to interpret the verse and how it plays out in the psyche. There's a hierarchy that didn't really happen here. And you know what? Since I've got these up right here, right now on the screen, I'm going to pull up a Lao Tzu and a Buddha one again because I've got them up right here, and I'm going to take a look at them and show. Yeah, but let's just do some more comparison with some of the short stuff. You can see though that template exists in the micro and the macro material. The small stuff, the big stuff. The big stuff is based off of the template in the same way the small stuff is. The small stuff says, go step, 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 step. The big stuff says, go here, and while here, here's your adventure. And then go here, and while you're there, this is the adventure. It's still following the template. It's just making each step bigger. It's adding more detail to it. But it all plays out up here. Instead of it being me having to resolve myself, it is now my new self having to resolve my old self, which became divided when I was younger. They're just putting more to it. It's not changing the idea that I have to go in and heal myself. They're just slicing up who we are. All right, let's just build off of what we just did and more analysis here. In the Tao Te Ching in Lao Tzu's work here, we see that it is page 1, and I'm just going to zoom in right on these two verses right here. Right up in front, we had creation, and what we have here is the beginning of us. Naming is the origin of all particular things. There we are. We are beginning to experience life. That would be considered first sin in the Bible. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. So that feeds off of the naming is the origin of all particular things. That's when something happens. If we're free from naming anything, we realize the mystery of life. Caught in whatever we've named, we only see the continued manifestations of that. Moving to Buddha. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. What this is saying is that we are a product of our mental experiences, how we're holding them, and that the evil, these are analogous. We cannot use them and be attached to them emotionally and say, I'm a nice person. This doesn't apply to me. We have to say, oh, evil does not mean evil. Evil means something that is bad, something that is evil to my course, my destination, what I want to do in life. I'm harboring something that is hurting me. That is what is evil. I'm not evil. It is what I am holding that is evil. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, I hate you. I am ashamed of this, all of that. That's going to continue to act out. Pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. Remember what we just heard from Lao Tzu? Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, they're caught in desire. Pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. That is caught in the manifestations. All that we are is a result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. This is verse number 2. It's called dual verses for a reason, you'll see. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. So once we clear everything out of us, we're happy, and it doesn't go away. It's no longer a cyclical thing, isn't it? What did Lao Tzu say? Free from desire, you realize the mystery. And back to Buddha. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves, which is the same as free from desire. Pure thought, free from desire. Desire means hanging on to something. Pure thought means just not having anything that you're hanging on to. Happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves. You realize the mystery. Yeah, okay. Now, are we going to find this in the Bible? What do we see here? We see a choice. And the choice can be something that leads you to something good or something bad. You have the option to have an evil thought or a good thought, caught up in things or free from things. So what I'm going to suggest is that in styles of teaching that they're held very much differently. And like I said, the ones that you maybe hold with some kind of reverence can be more difficult to access. And we have to know it's just a story and that we have access to it. I'm not going to say what the answer to that one is. That one should be very spot on. What is in the beginning of the Bible where there's a choice that you are getting ready to experience life, and this is not a choice about doing good or doing bad. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to do the wrong thing. This is a mental process. You have to shift it. The choice is what I'm going to decide my emotional state is of that experience I just had. That's the choice. I got raped. I am ashamed. That's the choice right there. I get beat. I get whipped. I hate who does that. I continue to hate them for the violence that they have put upon me. I have been told horrific things. I am horrible. I am stupid. I am never going to amount to anything. I'm a worthless piece of crap. And as I begin to mentally put those away, those are the choices, and that's tough. I stole something. I feel guilt. That's the choice right there. The things that we're storing away at the moment of choosing, when the consciousness is saying, here is the quality of what that is and is putting it away, that is what is going to be acting out. But in this case, what we have as we get into the Bible then, do we have the same sort of a thing going on? Yeah, put your answers below. Let's go to a Jesus verse and see if we can find the same thing. Matthew 7, 1 and 2. Do not judge so that you may not be judged, for the judgment you give will be the judgment you get. Verses like this were some of my early on verses that got me going, hey, that is karma. I recognized the parallels there. There were verses that were helping me get in. But you look at it and you have to treat every verse exactly the same. At no point in time do you look at something and say, all right, that's about the physical world, even if it sounds like it. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Although it doesn't work if you think it through. People will judge you anyway if you don't judge them. We're all being judged by somebody. So it doesn't even work when you think about it. You're thinking, well, it just means, we know what we think it means in the physical world. It's not 100%. Why would it even be in the Bible? Turn it inward, it's 100%. Judge not. Judge your life experience, naming, classifying, qualifying. I have judged this. I have shame. I have hurt. I have judged that and put it away, and it's going to continue to cycle. Judge not, lest you be judged. Once you judge, you become a product of that. For the judgment with which you judge. And that does not mean putting it out on somebody. This is what is difficult. The judgment with which you judge means I am judging shame as a part of my life that I don't want to deal with. That is what is acting out. It's not something mental, conscious, physical, somebody somewhere else. It's up here. I'm editing and go throw things in if it gets jumbled up sometimes. That's what happens. In Genesis, in the 7-day creation that I contend is added in, is part of the instructions here that have to do with cause and effect, that plants grow, that produce seeds, that when planted produce more plants of the same nature that produce the cause and effect is happening. That's what this is. That is what karma is. That is what karma really is, that whatever energy is stored in a mental state someplace of a certain emotional state is going to continue to seek out its emotional match. If you're carrying it, it's going to be called getting triggered. It can be good or it can be bad. You're carrying a bunch of bad stuff and you're going, I'm going to go do a couple of good things for people. How come karma doesn't work? Good stuff doesn't happen. It's not at the physical level. It's at the energy level. There we go. This is karma. It is. So is the trees and the seeds. But what they really are is cause and effect. For us, cause and effect that is based at the level of memory and the emotional quality of that memory. Those are our seeds. I'm judging a life experience. I've named it, I've qualified it, I am now becoming a product of this, and I'm living my life this way. It is happening. This is how it flows for me. Judge not, lest you be judged, for the judgment with which you judge others will be judged to you. Yeah, there it is. You play it out up here, and suddenly it's like, it's magic. All right. That last one wasn't part of the template, but that's a part of the process of it. Comparative interpretation, how you can see that at all times they get to the same place. It's a template. The stories sound different. We're pulling them in. Once you turn it inward and travel along a path, they go to the same place. They all function off of that template and off of the human psyche when you turn it inward. When you get to Judaism and Greek myth, the Mahabharata, Buddhism works that are beyond the small compact stuff. As it gets really big, you're going to find stories that suddenly we've got versions of this happening repeatedly over and over again. There's some other things going on, though, too. I don't recognize it all. I'm still cracking into this going, I recognize some things. I really do. I see some commonalities. In fact, I'm seeing so much now that I'm seeing things that are like, oh, that's different. That doesn't fit. That's different. That doesn't fit. I used to look at this stuff across the board and go, what a bunch of goofy. Oh, my God, what the... Now I see it's like a web. But your brain wires to see it through the interpretation process. You have to be able to make those translations of what the verses mean outward and translate them up into the psyche. They're built off of the human life cycle. The first one is, that's the creation myth. The second myth is the self-healing myth. I don't think Buddhism, Taoism, Jesus work quite have that. They're not structured that way. They just kind of tell you that you came about as a result of judging, thinking, processing, naming, classifying. And it's better to not hang on to things, otherwise you're going to see repetitive stuff going on. Yeah, you know, on the Jesus one, when you're looking at that, what was I going to say about that? There's something that, so do not judge so that you may not be judged, for the judgment you give will be the judgment you get. You see something different there. They didn't do a positive and negative. They didn't spell it out. They left it open. A lot of verse, especially later on, became pretty advanced. Let go. Let go of what? Let go. I don't know what to do. Let go. The person will never tell me what to let go of. In its simplicity, it's complete. Let go of whatever the hell you're hanging on to. You start naming, putting more detail. What they're doing here, they're not saying good or bad. They're saying whatever you hold on to comes back to. Whatever you judge comes back. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's bad. Presumably on this, we're looking for the healing. That we're not looking to analyze why life is okay. We look to analyze why life is not okay. So that's how we use the material. I don't know how to correlate it to something today to describe it. I've said before, like a huge monstrous gaming platform, and there's levels that we go to, and I don't know if it's more like, here's a bunch of mental machines from back there, and here's the assembler code. It's more like that. Here's how they were made. But it's easy enough to see it if you know that it's built on the human life cycle. I'm born with certain characteristics. I can become anything. My life goes bad as I make choices. It goes on. It gets worse. It gets bigger. It gets more raucous. My young female daughters, my early characteristics, my love, my joy, all of that stuff have been taken over by their qualities now. Now I hate you. Now I'm screaming and yelling. Now I don't trust anybody. Yeah, now things have gone bad. That is all the way up to the flood. Then they're adding in there that there's going to be cause and effect. There's going to be cycles. A number of things like that are all going to be a part of it. And then that is creation. The monomyth is, not many people are going to do it. I got to turn inward. I have to address my issues. I have to defeat those demons. I have to do it through a mentally interactive process where I use my higher being to interact with my consciousness, whoever the calling person is, to ease up the evil that is in there, the hurt. You're interacting with your hurt memories to make them stop hurting so you don't feel the hurt anymore. And then if it is something so significant that it's going to change your life, those are going to be issues as well. Your environment as you come back, the people that are around you, they don't want to hear what you have going on. Yeah. People you're around and you're like, oh my God, guess I just discovered this. Look at how wonderful it is to let this off. You should do this. They're going to tell you to get the hell out. That's in the material, in Jesus' material. Kind of that, I don't remember, I'll have to paraphrase, but what is it? The physician that doesn't teach their family, or doesn't heal their family. You're not going to take the people around you when you learn and teach them. Or the prophet that doesn't teach the village or something like that. You know what? You learn something, you're going to know something different. And the people around you are going to go, I don't know what you're talking about. You can teach somebody somewhere else. And why is that? Because you no longer fit in the environment that you started out in. You are growing. You now go to a different environment. That's Jesus material right there. Yeah, it tells us what to do. But you got to, those ones, yeah. You have to see it for yourself to appreciate it. But you have to, what I can do is tell you how to find it. But then you still have to go, okay, let me go find those things. Let me work them out. Let me process them. That would make sense long ago. You're in China. You're some kid, 2,500 years ago, 3,000, something like that. And you're working all day, tending something, and barely making it. And you're looking for answers in life, and you don't have media. You have ragged clothes on, and you sleep on a dirt floor. What would your mind do in your lifetime? I think it's difficult for us to fathom what they were going through that is so different from us that it would have been something completely normal to them to just go through this stuff all day long, where we look at it and go, wow, how tough is that? When if we were back there, it's all you would have. It would not be tough at all. We only think it is because we are so different now that we have current modern day biases that make it difficult for us to be those dirt poor, non-reading, intelligent. But life doesn't provide it much like we have today. The stories are going to be the biggest, what we have. And if somebody tells me, yeah, you have to forgive whoever hurt you, I know that academically. It's up to me to decide to do it or not. If somebody tells me that whatever I'm hanging on to is continually coming around and hurting me over and over again, I can understand that. But if somebody says something like, anyone who has had an evil thought, pain follows them like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. Now go think about that. By the time I go, whoa, and he tells me, make it about yourself, I have to figure that out. I have to process that. I got to go, my gosh, how does that even work? And by the time you go, okay, I got it, you've actually made connections in your brain. You know it experientially, not just academically. You have grown into that knowledge by processing it. That's what we have to do. That's how it works. We can't get around that. The brain works that way. And I would say, as far as I'm concerned, this seems to be a very normal process. But what we're doing here is we have to, if you sit and watch media all day long, it'll wire your brain. You will become a product somehow of what you're continually consuming. When you're doing this, we don't have the media. We have to play it out in the mind. The mind becomes the screen. That's where you play these out. Yeah. I'm going to experiment on this video. Conceptual speed reading. Watch this. Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Spirit is me, what I hold inside. Kingdom of heaven, the way of life, the way I want to live, that feels good. Kingdom of heaven is a good way of life. Poor in spirit means devoid of the things that I have accumulated in life. So, blessed are those who have rid their baggage, for they will feel much better. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. How do you do that? You stop turning away from the things that hurt you, and you address them, you mourn them, you look at the issues that you are carrying, and you heal. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. We have to go easy on ourselves when we don't trust, when we have fear, when we don't like ourselves, when we need to love ourselves. And that doesn't mean be in love with ourselves. It means not be such that we're holding ourselves in a derogatory or a negative way. Whatever we mentally feel, we become and we experience. You want to inherit your earth, you do so with meekness, not with anger and violence, and I want to take care of things. It's an easy process. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Righteousness, this is a calling, actually. Those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Righteousness means it's an inner thing, right? I want it right. I want my life okay. I want to have control over it. I want my mind. I want my space. I hunger and thirst for that. Then you're the one that's going to turn inward and deal with it. It's a calling. If you want to get into it really deep, you just have to focus on it and look at it. What I would recommend is grab one thing or maybe a couple things, the Dhammapada, Buddha, make comparisons, or just grab one and try to process through it. I've got some videos up on it. I know I put a lot of stuff up. If you look through my playlist, there's some in there that are just like Jesus, Buddha, and Lao Tzu comparisons in the beginning. I did a few of those, and they would be helpful to start probably. And they might not represent the most current way I understand it. But the understanding continues to grow as you do. Anyway, okay. Hope it was helpful. I'm glad you made that comment about the macro and the micro, seeing the similarities, because it's kind of there. It kind of is. You can see how it works. There really isn't a monomyth in the short works. There's not a monomyth in Taoism or Buddhism. No, I'm sorry. There's not a monomyth in the Tao Te Ching or in the Dhammapada or in the Sermon on the Mount or the Sermon on the Plain or the Gospel of Thomas. Those are just simply, here's how you came about. This is what you carry. This is what you must do to heal. This is what your life experience is going to be like. That's pretty much it. The other ones are big stories that, mysterious. The emergence from the great beyond. In the beginning, the universe, all that. That is telling about us and our life, but it's telling it in a story way that is, again, we're living back there. I might be a little shepherd kid that's out there that doesn't see another human for a month. What am I going to do? Watch ants? Yeah, this would be perfect to go, oh yeah. You'd be sitting there, it's a puzzle, it's a mental puzzle. It would be the most wonderful thing, and I think they still are. But we lost them. We're just finding them again. I know there's people out there that know this. I know the Romans know this. I know the New Testament and what they wrote. They are doing this. They're building the New Testament on templates. Whoever put this together knows what the hell is going on. They know better. They know that the religion is made on templates. What does that tell you? You have to see the templates to realize it. In its easiest form, probably finding Jesus as a chosen one who is seeking the kingdom of heaven within, or King Arthur, who is a chosen one who can pull out Excalibur and is seeking the Holy Grail. There's some steps in between. Jesus is a monomyth series. And, Buddha started out as Siddhartha Gautama, sought enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, spent time pondering. When he got enlightenment, he became the Buddha. Jesus born on the earth, goes into the desert for 40 days to meditate and pray, emerges as the Christ. The whole flood cycle in Genesis is a rebirth, flooding out, getting rid of, I gotta purge my beliefs. That's it. I have to flood out all the stuff I do, all the things I learned as a kid. My God, my life is a wreck. I gotta change that. That represents the flood right there. Jesus will have cleaned the inside of your cup, because the one who made the inside, the one who made the outside also made the inside. That is us. We're making our life, and we're making the inside of the cup. We've made our world. The similarities are there, but the size of the analogs are monstrously variable. They can be tiny little things, or they can be huge. And they're not plain language, and we can't be attached to them emotionally. If I need to eat, that's a good analog. That means I need to eat food, but I also maybe need to learn something. I'm hungry. I'm starving. I want knowledge. That's analogous to that. That's fine. That works. Now I'm naked. Ooh, I don't like that one. Yeah, we don't want to be naked. Yeah, cover up that nakedness. Nakedness is a good thing. Nakedness means I am not covering up anything. I'm not hiding anything. I don't have shame. You could know anything about me and I don't care. You got nothing. I'm hiding nothing. Know it all. Who cares? I don't live with any fear. I am naked. That's a desirable thing. We suddenly see that the analogs have to be left alone as to what they are. We think we know what they are, and we want to attach to them, and we don't. All right, I can see I'm straying again from the template, the micro, macro kind of stuff. It actually, I think that the important thing to remember, actually, and it really isn't straying from it, because once you can read them conceptually, suddenly the templates emerge. Instead of looking for the templates and going, I can't figure out what's going on here, once you interpret the verse, you go, there's the templates. The verbiage hides the templates. It makes it so we can't see them. And it'll mix things up. The way it tells us things, is in many ways it's simply complex ways of saying something like, if you do this, that'll happen. Or you can be on the other side of it and say, if you did this, this is going to be the result. And they're both teaching the same thing from either sides of it. Pretense, past tense, whatever, and different ways of doing it. So the analogs are really the trick of it, and learning how to do that shift right there. And then you can see the bigger stuff starts putting in layers. Yeah, the layers come in the bigger stuff right there. We're very, when the stories get big and there's a lot of people in there that are very important, those are all characteristics of us. Who is Moses and Aaron? Who's King Arthur and Merlin? If they're both us, I'm Moses, I'm the called one. Who is Aaron? Aaron's the one that does the magic. So I'm the one that goes, damn, I know what to do. But when it comes time to actually start interacting with yourself and dealing with things and looking at, here I'm molested, here's my guilt, here's my shame, I need to start interacting with these memories. Then they're just treating that like, here's this part of you is called Aaron now. So they're making the story bigger when we're just going, this is what I need to do. That is one person. Now I'm doing it. Oh, that is another person. I don't think I like it. That's a third. That could be a third person. They're stacking people in there, and then, just for the record, they're doing it in their culture with people, with things. They're building on the template, but they're grabbing names. They're grabbing people. They're grabbing kings. They're grabbing. Oh, there's a city over there. They put that in, so it's going to look archaeological. It will. It's being made at that time. It should look archaeological. Okay, I am going to end this video. And I'm also going to say, always, this stuff is theoretical and it's always malleable. I say things sometimes thinking I know the answer, and then I look at it later and go, oh, wait a minute, no, I was wrong. And you know what? That's exactly how the process works. It's okay. We're trying to figure out something that's been lost and kind of reverse engineering mentally. Yeah, figuring out the source. Anyway, hope the video was fun and interesting. If you have any questions or want me to address something else, I'd be happy to. As long as it's not something that's way outside of my area that I've worked in and studied. Okay, love one another, and I'll see you in the next video.